Hey everyone, I'm Parishi and welcome to CMC Conversations. Today we're joined by Pieter van Wingerden, who's a senior at CMC. Welcome on, Pieter.
Thank you for having me, Parishi. I'm really excited to be here.
So happy to have you. So, you just got back from DC.
Yes.
How was it?
I had a wonderful time. So I was there for the summer and fall of 2023. The fall I was there through the CMC Washington program, and I spent 7 months in the United States Congress. A very exciting and fun time to be working in Congress, but the fall in particular, so it was me and 8 other CMC students all living together, attending classes together, exploring the city together. It was just a phenomenal experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
That sounds amazing, and it looks like you really got to get out into the real world and experience kind of a sneak peek of what your career is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Claremont Village is definitely, a taste of the real world. But walking to the United States Capitol every morning for work, I think it every day, even the last day in December, it still sent chills down my spine. It's very rewarding to serve your country, to serve the American people, even at a time when the United States Congress there was a lot of chaos, but it was rewarding, and I think that like I said before, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Some of my roommates were also working in Congress too, and so seeing them in the halls, occasionally grabbing lunch with them in the cafeteria, it was a treat. And I worked with great staff. In the summer, I worked at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for Ranking Member Jim Risch, and in the fall, I worked at the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party for Chairman Mike Gallagher. And it was just to learn from them, to study under them, to advance their priorities, their policy priorities, their policy objectives. It was just great to at times be a fly on the wall and soak it all in.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And to your point about being with these people who go to CMC and kind of rooming with them in DC, seeing them in Congress, it seems like it's like a small part of the CMC community that was just transported to Washington, D.C. for that fall.
Absolutely. So the 9 of us, I think the vast majority of us actually were working in Congress, both in the House and the Senate, and we were transported into a different reality. I think about, so the first day of classes, I think, was a Tuesday. I got to sleep in until 8 or 8:30. I had a couple hours in between classes, a couple hours before baseball practice. The change of pace, slowed down a bit. I personally, there's a sense of, you're not sort of, serving your country, working in the federal government. But I just want to be a kid again for the next couple of months and soak it all in, because this is, probably the last time ever that I get to be a student and sort of not have to worry about all the adult problems that come with graduating college.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you were going from college to professional to college again, and
Yes.
That's definitely quite the transition, because I know that college is known to be a place where you explore, you have fun, and then like at CMC, your food is taken care of for you if you have a meal plan, and all of that kind of shifting in front of you and having to actually like work a real job and have to have a lot of priorities that you need to attend to because your work is actually like affecting the people that you're serving. That must be such a transition. And then coming back, it probably gives you a new sense of appreciation for being here.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, we had plenty of fun in D.C. There are a lot of young people in Washington, D.C., and I think just by nature of that, a lot of the activities at night, during the weekend, going to Nationals Park, all of it is just, there's a lot of fun. And so to anyone who's watching, who's considering the DC program or even just spending a summer in DC, I cannot recommend it more. I know the 9 of us, when we came back, we just sort of all had this mutual understanding that we had a great time. And so you're right, though, too. Coming back, there was sort of an appreciation for just being a student again. And I just also add that CMC definitely prepared me for going to DC. Taking care of yourself, taking care of others who live with you. To your point, you got to cook your own food. You got to figure out, a lot of things that you sort of get here at Claremont comfortably. So there was sort of the life aspect of it that it prepared me for as well.
So I'm wondering, like, what did that actually look like? What was your day-to-day in DC?
Yeah, so maybe I'll talk a little bit more about the fall, because that was sort of with the CMC program. I worked for Chairman Gallagher at the House Select Committee, but more broadly, the way that the DC program is structured is you work a full-time job, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and then twice a week you have night classes, usually from about 6 to 8:30. And the professors, they're based in DC, they're practitioners. Dr. Glassman used to work for the Congressional Research Service, knows more about House procedure than probably anyone. And at a time when Speaker McCarthy was being removed from the speakership, at a time when there was just so much going on in the House of Representatives, it was a treat to sort of get his perspective and his expertise on the inner workings of House procedure. So that was a treat. And then we also had Professor Manuel, a new professor from Georgetown. We looked at public policy, but it was great. And I think the professors understood that we were there first and foremost to work. And I think the workload reflected that. And it was a perfect balance between that 9 to 5, the classes in the evening, and then just getting to know the cohort better day by day.
That's amazing, because it seems like the priority of the DC program is learning through the actual experience of being in DC. And that makes me think the professors you have definitely sound incredible. It's great that you were able to work at the Select Committee and really engage with what you were learning in your classes at a very real level. And I mean, that's a very unparalleled opportunity, because when you're in college, you kind of often see what you're about to be looking at. Like maybe you're learning accounting, for example.
Yeah.
When are you going to be accounting? It's going to be a few years before you actually get into the real world and start applying those skills.
Right.
But with the DC program, it seems that you can apply your skills right away.
Yeah, I think that's a really, actually, I've never thought of it that way, but I think you're hitting it right on the nail, which is, in at least at Claremont, most of the time, if not all the time, you're looking at these issues, you're studying the issues. But when you go to DC, more often than not, at least in my case, you're not, I mean, you are studying the issues, but you're implementing it and you're working on the issues. And it's more different, it's practical, it's firsthand experience. I just add that a lot of times with the classes, we come back from wherever we're working, and it just basically was reflecting on the current news and sort of inputting our personal experience, right? So if we had a student who worked in a personal office, for example, for a member who was in the news over a piece of legislation, getting his firsthand perspective on what he thinks is going to go down. Or if the Select Committee, unveiled a memo or the results of an investigation, sort of getting my perspective on it. It's really unique, and the program, I think there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm. It seems like it really prepares you for public service in the realest sense, because you're doing it as you learn it. And I mean, that's not the only experience with public service that you've had. You also were awarded the Truman Scholarship last year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So I'm really curious, how'd you come about finding this scholarship, and how has it kind of played into your experience from then to now, even at DC?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Truman Scholarship was founded in 1975. It's a federally funded scholarship that is the living memorial to President Truman. And it's for people that are considering a career in public service. I first found out about the scholarship from my advisor and professor, Professor Lisa Koch. She was a Truman back in the day. I've taken national security, foreign policy, and a whole bunch of other classes with her. She's also the advisor for the Alexander Hamilton Society, which I'm happy to talk about. And so she sort of warmed me to the idea of thinking about applying for the scholarship. And I still joke with her sometimes that we went from sort of laughing about the idea of me one day being a Truman to actually being a Truman over the course of 4 or 5 months of the application.
So I'm wondering if you could go into what is the actual requirements for being a Truman Scholar.
Right.
What are they looking for?
Yeah, so I don't think there's like a cookie cutter, this is what they're looking for. But if there's one theme that I've seen from all the Trumans that I've interacted with. Quick aside, 2 members of the select committee were Trumans, Dusty Johnson of South Dakota and Andy Kim of New Jersey. But Trumans across the board, whether they were recently named Trumans or they're senior into their careers, I think the thing that rings true for the vast majority of them is truly a sense of service and service to country. For me, that's just giving back to the country that has given me so much. My grandfather was born on the island of Java, Indonesia, at the height of the Second World War in a Japanese internment camp. A couple years later, he would immigrate to the United States and leave behind the only life he knew, because the United States was the place that he believed he could start a family. And so we got to see his 2 kids, my father included, graduate from high school, from college, watch them have kids. And I think about his story and sort of his journey to America, and that for me is what service is about. It's giving back to the country, like I said, that has given me so much, and making sure that the values that our values, we can continue to preserve them and protect them. And for me, just sort of the security element is making sure that what we enjoy and appreciate, we can continue to have that.
Yeah, and I think that's very admirable. And the fact that there's this common theme of service.
Yes.
I mean, there's over 800 people that apply for the Truman Scholarship, and only under 100, right, actually end up getting it.
Yeah, 62 in our group, yes.
62. See, that's amazing. And what that tells me is that there must be a real genuineness to the people who are actually selected.
Yes.
This genuine desire to really give back.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful that the foundation selected me as the representative of the great state of Washington. And all the Trumans that I've met, they have their unique stories. I gave you my story. You ask the other 61 Trumans, they have equally powerful, inspiring stories. That, again, like I said before, just it runs across the gambit of interests, and I'm just so excited to see where the Trumans will go in the short term and in the long term. They're going to do all kinds of great things. I think a couple of Trumans are already in elected office, at the school board levels or at the city council level. There was a Truman who won a special election for a congressional seat in Rhode Island a couple months ago. It's just such an amazing group to be a part of, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do.
That's amazing, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do. What are you interested in going into, like, post-grad? Right.
So I think sort of the long-term goal is to work in public service on foreign policy, national security issues. I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, but I've really valued just talking both to CMC alum and folks in DC and hearing about their various careers in the federal government, working on foreign policy issues. I've thought about the academic side, being a practitioner in the government. I'm still trying to work it out, but it reassures me that a lot of CMC alumni that I've talked to have really emphasized the point that it's okay not to know, specifically what your next steps are going to be. In fact, it's nice when you're in your 20s. I don't have kids. I don't have to put food on the table for anyone but myself. I can sort of dabble in various careers, various opportunities, and see what is best suited for my interests. But I think DC is a great place to be when you're young. I had a blast being there for 7 months, and I'm really excited to go back this summer for the Truman Summer Institute.
So 2 things that you said really stood out to me. The fact that you're talking to a lot of CMC alum who
Yes.
are in positions that you're interested in, and also the fact that you want to do a lot of exploring in your 20s. And I think that's really relevant to any students that may be watching this. I think it's very helpful when you're looking at what to do with your career to just have a lot of conversations with a lot of people and kind of understand what their experience has
Absolutely.
been. That's something great about CMC. All of the alum are just so willing to help, and I've talked to many. And then I would also say that being in your 20s, I think that is a great time to explore, because you do have that freedom of maybe not having kids at that point, not really being tied down to a specific job, and I think it's great to really just explore.
Yeah, I think that goes to your point. I'm really thankful for, all kinds of different opportunities that CMC has given me. Funding, providing me with funding to my sophomore summer, go work at a think tank in the DC area, providing me with funding to go to conferences, what you alluded to, Parishi, with connecting you with alumni, the various research institutes. I work at the Rose Institute and the Keck Center. I mean, there's just so many opportunities, and the way I like to think of it is when you combine, your personal ambitions with the resources of CMC, the sky is quite literally the limit. And so, to anyone who's watching, who's maybe a first or second year at CMC, just take advantage of every opportunity that's out there, because there are plenty, and then just see where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's so relevant even to me, because I am a second year right now, and the fact that there's so many possibilities for what I can do and what my peers can do, it's just really inspiring and motivating. And something that's great about the community is that you and I aren't the only people that want to seek out those opportunities. Literally everybody on campus is trying to find the path that's right for them and really find a path that's going to make them successful. And being surrounded by such driven people who are driven but also supportive. It's not competitive, it's very collaborative. Mm-hmm. I think it's just the ideal place to be at this age.
Absolutely. And I think CMC places a unique emphasis on leadership, which is something that I've come to appreciate more sort of in the latter half of my time at CMC. And I think, when I think of leadership, I think of what President Reagan once said, which was something along the lines of what makes a great leader isn't the great things that they did, but the fact that they got people to do great things. And I've come across so many great leaders, whether it's, my time at DC, the professors here, I myself, running, the Alexander Hamilton Society. It's just learning from leaders and seeing the example that they set. If ever given the opportunity to lead, I can only hope that I can emulate what my mentors and the leaders that I've seen, the work that they've done, and hopefully learn from them and put it to good use.
Yeah, that's very true. Responsible leadership is one of the really key parts of CMC's ethos, and the fact that you are in the Alexander Hamilton Society, that you're leading that club, the fact that you're working with the Keck Center, the Rose Institute, that you're on the baseball team. Yes. Those are all very different commitments that you have on campus, but they all have that common thread of leadership. And I'm wondering if you could speak on that a bit. Yeah,
let me start with baseball, which is sort of, it's been near and dear to my heart for basically my whole life. My mother, I was born in Japan, spent the first 10 years of my life there. And my mother, when I was probably 6 or 7, signed me up for baseball. Because in Japan, baseball, there's you learn a lot of the intangibles, respect for elders, time management, and so she signed me up thinking that me going to baseball once a week at the age of 6 would maybe make me a better person. And here we are, 16 years later, and I'm playing college baseball. She still likes to joke that if she had known that would have been such a big part of my life, that she wouldn't have signed me up in the first place. But it's been a treat being on the CMS baseball team. We have a really good team this year. We made it to the SkyX for the first time in a long time last year.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. And we have a lot of good new additions, new talent, returning talent, and I think we're going to go very far in the season this year. And for me as a senior, I just want to put everything I have on the field one last time before I'll hang up the spikes. Maybe I'll play adult baseball in DC, which is nowhere near the level of competition that we have here in Southern California. But I just want to make the most of it. Baseball has given me so much. It's taught me so much. Some of my closest friends have been from baseball, both at high school and here. And so that's been a huge part of my life. And then you mentioned the Alexander Hamilton Society. That's a national nonprofit organization that helps students who want to pursue careers in foreign policy and national security. And a big part of the campus programming is inviting national security practitioners to college. So we brought people like former Assistant Secretary of Defense Randy Shriver to talk about U.S.-China relations. In the fall, we brought Nuri Turkle, who is a Uyghur American, to talk about the genocide of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. We brought retired Colonel Peter Mansour to commemorate Veterans Day to talk about lessons from the Iraq War for the Russia Ukraine war that's ongoing. And so bringing speakers to campus, giving the Claremont community a chance to engage with these speakers has been really rewarding. We also offer some programming on our own here. We have weekly roundtables where we talk about some of the latest and most pressing developments in the international space. So last week we did one on the Houthi rebels in the United States conducting airstrikes in the Middle East. And it's just such a rewarding it's been such a rewarding opportunity. I've had students who have told me that they chose to intern in D.C. for the summer, working on foreign policy issues because AHS exposed them to foreign policy, and I think that's what it's all about. So it's been an incredible treat, and hopefully, I'm confident that we're going to place AHS into capable hands even after I graduate. So stay tuned for their program. I think they've got a lot planned for the years to come.
Yeah, I think that's one big thing about leading something is finding the right person to take over when you're gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've been so fortunate to have had, I have a great team of student leaders who help with the programming. We have students who turn up for our various programming, and I'm just so grateful to work alongside them. They're very passionate. They know what they're talking about. They're talented. It's been a treat, and I'm going to miss it.
That's incredible, and it seems like you're very invested in AHS, and the organization itself seems like it offers so much opportunity to really flesh out your thoughts on foreign policy, like being able to hear from such esteemed speakers, being able to really have conversations with your peers. I think that sounds like a great chance to really learn and to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And then AHS also offers programming in DC. So for students like me who maybe spend a summer or semester, they have programming that exists in DC as well. So for example, I was a National Defense Fellow in the fall, which is a program that AHS runs in partnership with the Ronald Reagan Institute. And I got to, as a student, go to the Reagan Defense Forum and just be a fly on the wall when you have quite literally the leading national security experts and practitioners coming together in beautiful Simi Valley. So that was a treat. And I think they offer ample professional opportunities too that I can hopefully pursue when I graduate as well. But AHS is great. Anyone that's interested in international relations, I highly, highly recommend that they check it out. It's quite literally changed the trajectory of my career ambitions.
So it seems that with baseball, AHS, and all your other commitments on campus, you really have given your all, and you've really made sure that the legacy that you leave is one that sustains itself, one that emphasizes being genuine in the work that you do.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what your reflections are, having completed almost 4 years of CMC. You have that semester to really enjoy, but I mean, what are your thoughts as you graduate?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this question a lot, and I still can't sort of cohesively give an answer on what I want, what the next steps are or what it's going to be. But there are, I think, a couple of things that stand out. I used to think of the baseball, the various research institutes, all the other stuff as sort of extracurriculars, but it's really more co-curriculars. And what I mean by that, it is complementary to the education that you receive here, right? I think baseball has taught me just as much, prepared me just as much for the real world as the classroom. And I would say the same thing about running AHS, working at the Rose Institute, at the Keck Center. It's just sort of, you put it all together, and that's how I think of it. In a couple years from now, I'd love to come back to CMC and actually visit the athletic facility. That's something that I'm really looking forward to when I come back. And I guess the last thing I'll just say is, and I alluded to this earlier, is I think CMC has prepared me in a way that I could not have expected 4 years ago to go into the world and make the world a better place. As an American who grew up abroad, my view of what it means to be an American has been shaped by America's engagement with the rest of the world. right? So living in Hong Kong when the protests took place in 2014, when the national security law was implemented in 2019, 2020, like that sort of made me want to pursue a career in foreign policy, national security. But it wasn't until I got to CMC, working with these great professors, working at these research institutes, where I got to have a better sense and think about the issues at a much higher level, engaging in discourse at a much higher level, and implementing the issues in DC at a much higher level. And so I think that's something that I'll always be forever grateful for.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed my 1 year online, 2.5 years in person, but I could not have imagined a better 4 years. I'm just really thankful for everyone who supported me on the journey, but I think the time has come to go into the real world, serve my country, make the world a better place, and just see where it goes.
Yeah, that's incredible, and it seems that you really had these aspirations from a young age, but you were fortunate enough to come to CMC, which gave you a platform to really pursue these incredible things like the Truman Scholarship, really championing the Alexander Hamilton Society, working in DC, and those are all such incredible opportunities that CMC definitely prepared you for.
Yes.
To lead. And kind of closing off, I'm wondering, what do you define leadership to be?
Yeah. I think of leadership as mainly leading by example, right? I was fortunate enough to work for very talented people in Congress, both at the staff level. My co-interns were great. The staff that I worked for were great. Obviously, Chairman Gallagher is one of the best members of Congress. I know I'm biased, but it's just seeing how they led inspired me to do a better job, on the day-to-day. And so I can only hope that if I get the chance to be in a position of leadership, whatever it looks like, whether it's leading the Alexander Hamilton Society or something in the real world in a couple of years, I just want to set the example for the people that will work alongside me, and show to them that if you put in hard work, if you give it your best, that's all you can ask for. So lead by example, show it, and then get it done.
Lead by example, show it, and then get it done.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I think I learned a lot from this conversation about just how to really approach going for what you believe in and kind of taking advantage of what there is. So I really want to thank you for sharing your insights.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Well, thank you so much, Peter.
Thanks, Parishi. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.